Welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast, the show by fans for fans of your Milwaukee Brewers. Welcome back to another edition of the Brew Crew Review Podcast. This is episode number 74. This is your host, Vince Travato, joined here on the set today by Scott Bartell. Scott, how are you today?
Doing pretty good. We're taping on Sunday, releasing on Sunday, so celebrating a series win and another close game, hey?
Yeah, another great game today. And I guess before we really get started, do we have Chad and Craig with us? I know that you were in charge of getting them corralled in here on the set today, Scott.
No, actually, I had left that up to the interns. Actually, I think they said they were actually going to apply for jobs at the Milwaukee Brewers ticket office again. So I would love to know which one has the inside track of getting hired back at the office between the two. I'm pretty sure one's banned for life and one is banned just within the organization. So I'm not sure, but
yeah, we won't say which one is which. I think one does have a ban for Major League Baseball for gambling on baseball, and then the other is banned for anger issues from the Brewers organization just generally. And we won't say which one is which, but
so anyway. And Pete Rose have in common. This is actually real. Like. It's not even like a joke. That's what makes it so comical, I guess. It's just absurd.
Yeah, no. Yes, one of our hosts is legitimately banned from Major League Baseball, but maybe someday he'll still get in the Hall of Fame. You just never know. He did have a good year a couple years back in the ticket office. So, well, in any event, Scott, great. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, for what it's worth, I've heard from our anonymous source. Tom Carter that they actually could use some good people in the office. So hopefully,
Scott, we're not starting this episode off on a high note because you really aren't supposed to say Tom Carter's name on the air. He's our anonymous source. So again, we're not supposed to say Tom Carter's full name on the air. You can go with Tom C or T Carter, but not Tom Carter's full name. So let's just have the interns edit that part out.
Yeah, no, T Carter for sure. Sorry, Tom.
Okay. Yep. So sounds good. Well, in any event, welcome back to another episode of the Brew Crew Review. It's been an interesting week, Scott, but ended a bit on a high note. As you mentioned, we're taping this on a Sunday evening. The Brewers have just taken the series from the Pittsburgh Pirates, 2 or 3 games from Pittsburgh at home at beautiful Miller Park in Milwaukee. Today was a close game, a 2-1 victory. Scott, what were your thoughts on the Brewers and the Pirate series that concluded, just a few minutes ago here today?
Every single game was very, very close. Just well played. I'm thrilled to get out with 2 out of 3, especially after losing 2 out of 3 to the Mariners. So, I don't know. Just really good baseball, just great pitching all around. Great games.
And that continues a theme. Now the Brewers, after today's game, are actually tied for first place in the National League Central Division. The Pirates have a bit of a worse record, but it seems like the Brewers and Pirates have played, pretty close games all season long. I was, as we mentioned on a previous podcast, I was up at the last Brewers Pirates series in Pittsburgh about 3 weeks ago, and that was a very well fought out series. The Brewers ended up emerging victorious in a 14-inning game on a Saturday. It was, it's been a series of hard fought games between the Brewers and the Pirates, but it seems like Milwaukee keeps coming out on top in these games. Do you see the Pirates and the Brewers matching up for any particular reason, or do you think it's just kind of an oddity that these games are so close, or what do you think it is?
I think it's probably just a small sample oddity. The teams, anytime you're in the division, you're going to play each other pretty competitively. But as far as like score, that doesn't necessarily equate, I guess. But yeah, no, when you look at just the last 6 games, I guess we only scored 4 runs once. So, to be able to get out of there with just 3 out of our 3 wins in our last 6 games, we should be pretty happy.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you alluded to it earlier. The Brewers did struggle against the Mariners earlier on in the week. The return of Domingo Santana to Milwaukee. These two teams don't play each other very much, so it's not really something that we can look to in years past and say there's a track record of winning or losing against the Mariners. But what were your thoughts on the Brewers and the Mariners series earlier on in the week?
I thought it was a series that we should have had. Obviously, it's just the offense wasn't there, and I think what you're maybe hopefully alluding to there is that there's a lot of times that, obviously we know Domingo Santana, but these two teams don't really know each other, and it makes it a little bit more of a pitcher's duel because you have pitchers that you're not used to facing with any kind of regularity. You just don't have the at-bats against them, and I think overall that probably led to a little bit of low scoring.
Yeah, interesting series, kind of frustrating series. And it was that series against the Mariners that led to a series of roster moves being made here in the last few days. So let's recap that a little bit. The Brewers recalled second baseman Keston Hiura, much to the delight of many fans from AAA San Antonio, and optioned third baseman Travis Shaw to AAA San Antonio. We also designated longtime Brewer Hernan Perez for assignment. So his fate is yet to be determined whether or not he remains in the system and gets down to AAA and can remain in the Brewers organization remains to be seen. No word yet on that, but also recalled infielder Tyler Saladino. And then in an unfortunate piece of news, pitcher Jimmy Nelson was placed back on the disabled list again. He'd only been activated for 3 starts and I think 1 appearance out of the bullpen in the meantime since he had come off of his long-term stint since 2017 on the DL. And then pitcher Corbin Burns was once again recalled from the minor leagues. Scott, do you want to kind of go through these moves and recap them a little bit with your thoughts on each one?
Well, I think the one that we should probably start with is the most shocking, I guess, which was, to me anyway, of those was probably Hernan Perez being DFA'd. I was definitely surprised by that, especially because everybody wanted Keston Hiura to be back, and we were sitting here in our last episode trying to, work the numbers and see how we could get it back up on the roster and get it back in the bigs. And the biggest problem that we had was we thought we had probably too many pitchers, and Hernan Perez always seemed to be kind of safe because of that positional versatility that he brings. And when you have like a roster number crunch, you really want a guy like that to be on your roster with that kind of versatility. Unfortunately, he just wasn't getting it done in semi-limited at-bats, I guess, 150 at-bats, I think. But, I was definitely surprised to see him go.
It's the same here. And just to show how much we know, when we were discussing, Keston Hiura and his potential return to Milwaukee, we went through a series of potential roster moves that the Brewers could make, including demoting Travis Shaw and, maybe sending down a pitcher. And there was a lot of possibilities that were discussed. I don't think that any of us brought up Hernan Perez, unless Jed mentioned it and we missed it. I don't think that any of us said that Hernan might be the odd man out on the roster. Now, granted, we also called up Tyler Saladino, which was also interesting because I think that many fans may have looked at Mauricio Dubon as being the next likely infielder to get called up, and not Saladino. It's no insult to Saladino, who was having a great year in AAA, but I think that a lot of guys maybe would have picked Dubon to get a call up ahead of Saladino, so that was also interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And I do want to say that we weren't wrong. I mean, Shaw still actually did get sent down, so that wasn't actually one of the moves that was suggested. But no, it's definitely with that many moves, do you consider this a little bit of a shakeup, maybe to motivate the team, bring some new blood in?
I do, and I think that it goes along with some very interesting comments that manager Craig Counsell made. I think it was 2 days ago, right after all these moves happened, and he was asked about Orlando Arcia, and Craig Counsell was very direct and to the point, saying that Orlando's defense has not improved, his bat's not where it should be. It made it really sound like Arcia might be part of some future move as well, whether that's to the minor leagues or maybe not tendering him a contract after the season. I think that also took a lot of fans by surprise. But certainly Brewers management, from David Stearns to Craig Counsell, is definitely showing some frustration with where the Brewers infield is at this point, which is really interesting to me because, and we've discussed it on other episodes, but it hasn't really been brought up in the last week. But we still haven't seen a ton of production out of our first base position. Certainly guys like Jesus Aguilar have been disappointing. Eric Thames has had a decent year, but, Jesus would be another guy who's been really struggling, who the Brewers were counting on in the infield this season. So I think that there is some frustration. All these moves were a little surprising outside of maybe Hero being called up. But I even sitting Travis Shaw back down, again, this is a guy who hit 30-plus home runs the last 2 seasons. He's been struggling a lot this year, had an injury earlier in the season. I don't necessarily think it's a surprise that he was sent down, but I do think that it is still fairly shocking when you look at it from a big picture perspective. If you would have said on opening day that Travis Shaw would be in the minor leagues, by July 1st, I think that would be pretty shocking to most fans.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I could probably go so far as to say that if Aguilar had an option and Shaw didn't, that Aguilar would be the one on the plane ticket to AAA. So,
right.
I mean, it was just one of those things where there was really nothing else that anybody could do at this point. I mean, there's only so many times that you can keep trotting them out there. And it's frustrating for absolutely everybody. Arcia, just to circle back to that, I mean, he was brought up as having like this gold glove, and he definitely has a phenomenal arm. He still plays, to me, I mean, it's still above average defense, so it's not like, we're missing too much there. A few times maybe where like you'll see him make an easy play and then, punt or he'll make a phenomenal difficult play that, most shortstops couldn't do, and then he'll punt an easy one, or maybe he'll try to make a throw that shouldn't be made and that results in an error or something like that. But for what it's worth, I mean, he's still hitting 240, which is not good, but 11 home runs compared to what? I think he had 3, 5 all of last year or something like that. So
yeah, I think it was 5. You could have your interns look that up, but I think it was 5 all last season, and a couple of those at least came within the last couple of weeks of the year. He had been demoted, I think, twice to the minors during the 2018 season. So, had been up and down, throughout the course of last year as well.
3 homers all last year, but I think you're still technically right, though, because I think he had at least one. I think he had 2 in the playoffs. So.
Yeah, so maybe that was it that I was thinking of, the 5 total, but 3 in the regular season. So, yeah, I've been very shocking comments. I did not expect to hear that out of Craig Counsell. Normally we get kind of a vanilla response from Craig on, players, your specific situations. It's not like he's a guy that goes to the press very often and doesn't compliment a player. Maybe sometimes he doesn't say as much, but usually he's not so direct and, kind of critiquing a player. So it was kind of eye-opening. And I think that, coupled with the moves that were made, as we discussed, I think that there's definitely some frustration. The best thing about this last month, June, has been, fairly rough for the Brewers, but the best thing has been that the Cubs have also played poorly. So we've managed to, not only stay in contention, but we're actually in first place in the division, tied with the Cubs as of this taping. So, I do think, though, that there's some frustration that maybe the thought is that the Brewers could be, with the Cubs losing streak this month, 4 or 5, 6 games ahead of the Cubs in the standings going into July and the All-Star break. So, that's probably where part of the frustration lies. And part of it also just, again, being from not getting the expected production from guys who were really relying on going into the year. And, again, that's Travis Shaw, that's Jesus Aguilar, that's maybe Arcia to a degree, but it's crazy how guys that we were so counting on just in, the span of a few short months ago are now either in the minor leagues or off the team in the case of Hernan Perez.
Yeah, apparently David Stearns, so we have 8 players, 8 actual position players in our starting lineup, and 2 of them were guys that we just signed, and they're both all-stars. So,
Scott, that's the next segment. Come on, we can't give that away yet.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm sorry.
But it was a good. No, it was a good transition. Just if you want to finish your thoughts first on, kind of where we're at after these moves, we'll make the transition now because he did that.
Oh, okay, yeah. I guess I should have probably. Yeah, it would have been a great segue, but
yeah, you knew about this in the pre-production meetings, but that's okay.
Would you go so far as to say that well, Saladino is probably brought up specifically, I guess, because he could play a little bit better shortstop than Dubon. Because I thought Dubon, I actually wasn't sure if you were going to bring up one or the other. It's almost a coin flip, but Saladino has a little bit more major league experience, and I think he can maybe play a little bit better short, but that's subjective.
Yeah, so Saladino has, Dubon has zero major league experience, and Saladino had several seasons with the White Sox. Then he played last year in the big leagues with us for most of the year. So certainly he brings that to the table. Actually, it should be pointed out, Saladino was up with the Brewers earlier this season as well for a brief stint. I think it was like a week or 2 weeks. So he was up on the team already once. But he does offer some versatility, so I think that the Brewers are eyeing him as sort of Perez's replacement at this point. And again, Saladino was hitting very well in AAA, so maybe they're hoping to ride a hot bat. He can play second base. He can play shortstop. I believe that he played a little bit even in the outfield last year. So he's got some versatility for sure, and that is most definitely a value to a team like the Brewers that really uses versatility a lot. So that's one aspect. And then Hira coming up, Hira played well when he was up in Milwaukee a few weeks ago. Hit outstanding again after being sent back to San Antonio. So we know what he can do with the bat. Hero steps right into the starting second baseman role. Mike Moustakas moves back over to third to replace Shaw. So I think that those two moves are, you've got a kind of a designated idea for each one of those moves that was made. But Hero does not offer the defensive versatility that a guy like Saladino does. So that's probably why they were made in tandem to a degree. But yeah, interesting timing, interesting comments on the Arcia stuff, and we'll see how it plays out. And then the other move that we should discuss quickly, Corbin Burns is back up in the big leagues, and another setback for everyone else. Any of our inside sources, or maybe our colleague Tom Hodgecourt, about the prognosis for Jimmy Nelson in his latest bout of elbow discomfort?
Yeah, I just think that with his injury history now at this point, I mean, he's really, really battled, but he was gone for so long. I just think they're really gonna take their time with him. I just don't think they're in any rush to bring him back at this point. I really hope that this is something that's just gonna be a couple weeks, but I don't know. There's something in my heart telling me that this is gonna be an extended stay, and I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think that you might be right. And I'm just wondering if the Brewers medical staff did, and I'm sure they did, but what was the rationale for bringing him back when he did come back? Because, a couple extra weeks after being out for, a year and a half almost is, to me, no big deal. I think that most fans are thinking that anything that we got from Jimmy Nelson this year was kind of gravy. So why rush him back in the first place? His velocity has not been there yet, at all in any of his outings, whether it was in San Antonio or whether it was in the big leagues.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I thought it was something that he was building up to. I mean, we showed him there were a couple times that he was out there. He was still able to to hit 96, but he just wasn't with the amount of regularity that I guess it should. But I don't know. I'm still thinking that it was just a little bit of a control issue and a little bit of a just not having a lot of innings under his belt, because I mean he's been hurt for so long. I mean, pitching is not like riding a bike. I mean, you can't just pick it up and just be perfect like he was before he got hurt. There's going to be it's going to be something that it's going to take a little bit of time, and I think they thought he was ready, and I mean it's got to be hard because you got a guy who took almost 2 years to battle back from something like that, and to tell him, when he's done everything you asked him, and to tell him, well, why don't we wait a little bit longer? I mean, it's got to be frustrating to him. But they brought him back. I don't think they would have done it if they didn't think he was, 100% and ready to go. And unfortunately, the results just weren't there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and And I'm not accusing the Brewers medical staff of not doing their due diligence. Obviously, they worked with him very closely. They thought that he was ready. I'm a little worried that this latest setback might, like you said, be a little more serious than is currently being discussed in the media. And if Jimmy shut down again for another prolonged period of time, I mean, it's got to take its toll on a guy mentally too, not just physically. And we're judging a little bit from the outside, but it seems like Jimmy's a little deflated at this point. Some of the interviews that he's given, he just seems like, this is such an uphill battle, and you're facing it in the public eye in the sense that the media is always asking questions about it, and then you go and you pitch and you don't pitch well for the 4 or so games that he came back. He was moved to the bullpen after 3 starts. So I think part of it too is getting Jimmy back mentally to a good place. So if it takes a longer amount of time to do that, then so be it. I mean, at least as far as I'm concerned. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I would agree. I mean, and it's really weird because I've heard some people saying like, oh, well, was this like they were asking like, or they were saying that this is like, obviously his return was unsuccessful. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, technically that's true. I mean, he came back up here and got roughed up, but to be able to battle back and return at all is a success to me anyway.
Yeah, no, that's true. And that's true. That is true.
And I guess I also want to stress, like, I mean, it's not re-injuring the labrum. This is an elbow issue. It's a completely different issue. But could they be connected? Absolutely. But who knows? And ultimately, it's just something where they're going to have to shut him down for a while and take every precaution that they can and hope that he's able to make it back again.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead. We'll move on to better news. And the Brewers were able to get 4 All-Stars as of the last half hour here. The All-Star game is officially named its roster. So Christian Yelich is a starting outfielder for the National League this season.
Top vote getter,
for usually. Top vote getter, and definitely a candidate for repeating as National League's most valuable player. But 3 other All-Stars named today. Mike Moustakas will be in the game as a reserve. Yasmani Grandal at catcher, and then Josh Hader was named as a pitcher for the National League bullpen. What are your thoughts about 4 All-Stars being named to the team this year?
Every single one of them is, in my opinion, absolutely deserved. The only one I was actually worried about was Moustakas, actually, just because there's a little bit of a logjam as far as like talented third basemen. So I thought that was potentially an issue.
Yeah, and that was something that we discussed briefly. I think you nailed it with the selections of our All-Stars this year. I think that I also named Brandon Woodruff as deserving of an All-Star appearance. So I think I was off, but good work on that this year, Scott.
Well, I mean, it's great, but at the same time, I think that it's very possible that you're going to wind up being right when all is said and done, because I do think that there's still some real potential for Woodruff to get named between now and the time of the All-Star game, especially because, I mean, of course, anybody who, I guess, is like a baseball stat head, they're not going to care about wins, but when you have won more games than anybody else in the National League, like that resonates with fans and with it's just one more thing that stands out. I mean, if he's 0-10 with the exact same amount of stats, like as far as like WHIP, ERA, like strikeouts, all that kind of fun stuff, that's right, great, but it's going to help him a little bit. So hopefully he gets named.
Yeah, Woodruff, the first in the National League to get 10 wins on the year. He would, certainly be deserving if he gets it. So no harm, no foul on not being named right away. But interesting. So the Brewers last year had 5 All-Stars, and that was the high number for the organization in the team's history. So this ties the second highest total ever here in 2019. So congrats to the guys that made the team. Where are you watching the game, Scott?
I have no idea. Probably at home, but not sure. Might go to a bar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not Cleveland.
No, unfortunately. Okay. I wouldn't mind it though.
Yeah,
It's
well,
a
I'm sure
great
Craig put in
city,
for our
great
press passes.
stadium,
We should be fine.
Rock and
Yeah,
Roll Hall of
we
Fame.
should. Yeah, man, lots to do there. It
A mistake on the lake,
should be
as
good.
Uncle Junebug would say.
That's true. Scott, let's take a look at our social media. Did you want to go through one of the polls that your interns put up this week?
Yeah, I guess so. I actually, before I got away from the All-Star bit, I wanted to verify it first because all of this is coming in as we're taping, so it's like, and our interns are not great, but it's Christian Yelich, I believe he's in the home run derby as well. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, so that should be exciting. And then I guess one more just little blurb I wanted to throw out there is that Devin Williams is going to be in the Futures game as well. He was our top pick, I believe, the second rounder from 2013, I want to say. And he's had a great year at Double-A this year, so hats off to him.
Yeah, very, very good. Good reporting there, Scott.
Oh, yeah, we do what we can. But okay, so I'm sorry about all that. Now, what else do we want to talk about? We had so much here going on.
Yeah, your interns put up a couple polls this week. Did you want to get to those, and then we'll talk about the week that's coming up for the Brewers before the All-Star game. And again, we went over all of this in the pre-production meeting, so you should be aware of our schedule here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In great detail. No, actually, all of our interns are now currently working at the Milwaukee Brewers ticket office. So that, unfortunately, I have to put out those polls myself. I have to do all this research myself. It's crazy.
Oh.
And actually, they said that they spent most of their time actually just voting for Milwaukee Brewers players for the All-Star game. So, hats off to them, help make that happen. Really appreciate it. And they said they occasionally sell tickets too. So all kinds of great stuff. And they actually said that they're really happy that they're not really required to provide any customer service whatsoever. So it's sell tickets and vote. And so I can appreciate that. But as far as polls that we put out, we said first of all, who gets your midseason vote for the most improved Brewer compared to last year? Do you want to throw out who it would be for you, and then I'll tell you what the fans think?
Most improved since last year, I would probably have to go ahead and say Brandon Woodruff. I think that he's shown, marked improvement in his ability to pitch through big situations, to pitch longer into games. He had some glint of that success coming out of the bullpen last year, but it's a completely different role. So I'm gonna go ahead and say Brandon Woodruff. Yeah,
the fans definitely agreed with you. Actually, 50%. The next closest was actually Zach Davies, who might have actually been my pick, and he's at 21%. Only because Woodruff was so great out of the bullpen last year, and he was so great in the playoffs that for him to be a successful starter was not that big of a stretch for me. Whereas Davies, this is sort of his breakout year. He's done so well that I think that Woodruff's having the better year than Davies, but Davies I would say is more improved. So that's a little bit of semantics there, but that's what I would have gone with. But yeah, the fans agree with you, Vince.
Okay. Who else weighed in on the poll then? The other two candidates on the list.
It's actually a tie, 13% each between Mike Moustakas and Orlando Arcia, both having good years. I mean, obviously Moustakas is having an all-star year, but compared to last year, he has been improved considerably, and the same thing goes for Arcia. Just not as much as the first aforementioned Davies and Woodruff.
Good. Okay. Fair enough. All right. Do we have another poll question?
We do, and this one got a little bit more traction, which means that people were more emotionally invested in the angry part of it. I think,
and this is also we should point out that this is the poll question brought to you by Benno's in downtown West Dallas, Wisconsin. Continue to patronize Benno's for all of your around the world drinking needs. Okay, go ahead, Scott.
Awesome. Oh, around the world. Oh, it's so great. I did accomplish that, but unfortunately, I had to get a cab home. It was rough.
Yeah, you did, but you did get a T-shirt and a picture on the wall, so that was great.
Oh, it's still up there somewhere. They're going to be like, that
It
idiot.
is.
Hopefully it's next to our Christmas card. But no, Benno's is absolutely phenomenal. And let's see. Which Brewers player has had the most disappointing season so far compared to last year?
Ooh.
Now,
do we call guys that are in the minor leagues Brewers still?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah. Or even if they're.
Then I go with Travis Shaw. You lose the guy and can, hit 30-plus home runs, and he's hitting it, I think he's got 5 on the year so far, and you miss that big lefty bat in the lineup. That's a big disappointment. So my vote's Travis Shaw.
Yeah, Hernan Perez was DFA'd, of course. We already talked about that. And he wasn't even in the top 4. Like, I didn't even put him on the poll because that's how rough some of these seasons have been. I didn't even think he was I didn't even think he was a top 4 option right now. But yeah, Travis Shaw, absolutely right, 47%, 34% say Jesus Aguilar. And after that, Corbin Burns, and then Jalees Chassin.
I think all 4 are deserving of some votes for what it's worth.
Yeah, and Chassin, again, not having a horrible year by any stretch, but I just had higher expectations for him after what he did last year.
Yeah, and this is a guy that was tapped by the team to be the opening day starter. So this is a guy that I think a lot of fans and others were looking at him as being sort of a stabilizing veteran presence at the top of the rotation, and if not an ace in the true sense of the word, at least a guy who was going to lead the rotation. Maybe like almost a Giovanni Chiardo type going back a few years, but he has not lived up to that expectation this year, even if he has been overall serviceable, but certainly not great, or a guy that you'd be very comfortable with handing the ball to in game 1 of a playoff series.
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, I'm not even sure that he even. I'm actually surprised that he gets 9% of the vote and Corbin Burns only gets 10%. Corbin Burns, I just thought was going to be. I mean, what is this Brewer team if Corbin Burns does anything compared to what he did last year? Because I hate to say it, but right now, Jeffers hasn't quite been the dominant person that he was last year. The only person you can really count on is Hader. And I say that, and Hader has actually had he's actually been a part of. He's surrendered home runs to players in 2 of the most devastating losses of the season. I believe he gave up one to Bellinger that cost us the game against the Dodgers, and then another one to Freddie Freeman against the Braves. Both of which, both teams, they're the only 2 teams right now that actually are winning their divisions besides us. So big games and, devastating. And, and he's still the only person that you're like – that you really think is going to be able to do the job right now. And, man, I really think that we would have – if just between those 4 guys, could you imagine how good this team would be? This team would be 15 games over 500 right now if all 4 of those guys were putting up even 10% less of the numbers that they put up last year.
Yeah, and that's part of the frustration, I think, from the fan base. I mean, some of that's natural in a 162-game season, and fans are going to react like fans do. But I do think that the frustration level is a little higher than perhaps should be expected for a team that's in first place, just because of the fact that again, we could be 5, 6, 7 games up in the division with even a little bit of a contribution from guys that we were really counting on going into the year.
I mean, at the time of this taping, we're 6 games over 500 and tied for first place in the division. And I believe we would be, even if we didn't win the division right now, we would still have the first wild card spot.
Yep.
I think we have to absolutely be thrilled with our position based on the performance of the team so far. And really, if you look at it, I think everybody said that this division is going to come down to 3 teams. Brewers, Cubs, Cardinals, and all 3 of those teams, in my opinion, have underachieved so far this year.
But give a little credit to David Stearns for building the depth, in the system to make up for guys who are not having good seasons as well. I think that's kind of an underrated aspect of the team's success, just because he's getting a lot of a lot of criticism from a lot of fans, just because he didn't go out and get a big name starting pitcher in the offseason. So, but I do think that you have to look at the overall, picture and say, okay, well, he did provide a team that's got a lot of depth at least and can hang tight in the division even when guys are performing.
Yeah, how many times have we had a guy that came off a good year and then they just decide to bat, 200 or 220 or something like that, and they're just not going to get done. Yep. And we're like, well, pencil him in for 550 at bats. Like, we're just going to have to
right.
stick with him because we don't have the cupboard is bare.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that's a little bit different when you've got a guy like Shaw struggling and you can call up Keston Hiura. That's certainly a good position to be in. So,
absolutely,
Scott. Let's go ahead and take a look at the week that's coming up. We've got 4 games against the division rival Cincinnati Reds, and then 3 games in Pittsburgh against the Pirates to end the week and to end the first half. What are your thoughts on the series coming up against both the Reds and the Pirates?
Well, I mean, I actually think that both the Reds and the Pirates, like, they're probably going to finish, last and second last in their division, but neither one of these are bad teams by any stretch. How many games do we have this week again?
4 against Cincinnati and 3 against Pittsburgh, so 7 total games.
Okay, so remember we had that 5-game series, and I thought, that's perfect because we're going to be able to throw Hader at least 3 of those games. When you have 7 games in a row, you're going to get less of Hader, and in my opinion, that's less wins because I just don't have a lot of faith that we're going to be able to hold the lead, and the offense is not firing on all cylinders right now. Hopefully that changes now with all the changes that we've had, but here especially, you can't predict.
Yeah, we need Wisconsin needs a prediction from you. Could you please what's the number? No more hemming and hawing. Just pick something.
4-3, and it should be better than that. It really should.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to go with as well, though. 4-3. I'm going to say that we'll split the series with Cincinnati and take 2 of 3 from Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh seems like we played them pretty well this year, so we'll say 2-3 against the Pirates at PNC Park. So we'll go into the All-Star break, hopefully with a winning week, and continue on to better things in the second half.
No reason why we shouldn't be able to come out of there 5-2, but unfortunately, we're just not playing them. We're not quite there yet. So yeah, 4-3 is the option.
Well, that sounds good. So we'll pick the same 4-3. I can't speak for Craig and Chad, but we'll assume that they're going to pick the Brewers to have winning weeks here. Let's see. We've got a couple of minutes left. Let's dip into the mailbag and say, let's see what we have here. Scott, we've got a question from Liz Sieski from West Allis, Wisconsin, and she asks, hey, guys, love the show. Who's your favorite interview that you've ever done something with, and why?
Well, I mean, is it just people that I've interviewed? Because I've actually only done 2 interviews, 2 or 3.
Well, we can't let you on the set too often with that, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, you gotta play to your strengths, I guess. I would say.
She did have.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna say Tim Dillard. I think it was a great interview. I think it was a lot of fun, and not only that, but the part that actually was interesting is, just picture how long ago this is, and Tim Dillard, after the interview, was like, "Did I do okay?" I'm like, what? Yeah, of course. And he's like, well, because the thing is I've never actually done one of these interviews before. And I'm like, what? I'm like, all right. I mean, at the time, Tim Dillard was in Nashville and he was throwing 98. And now he's a social media icon, basically. And he's, as always, a great personal guy. But I was like, I never thought that he would be the person because I was the one who was nervous. So.
You did great.
It was a lot of fun.
Okay, well, very good. Yeah,
I think it's somewhere on
I would
YouTube.
actually,
it's not on our channel.
You can have the interns post that, but no, good selection, and I'm sure that she'll be happy with your answers. So thanks to Liz Edwards-Sieski from West Allis, Wisconsin for the email question this week. And again, fans, remember that you can send us an email, Brew Crew Review Podcasts with an S at gmail.com, or you can find us on Twitter at Brew Crew Review 1 is our handle, and we're very active on Twitter, or at least our interns are. So please continue to send in your questions, and we'll try to get to as many as we can in our next episode, where I'm sure that we'll discuss a winning Brewers week, the upcoming All-Star game again, and the trade deadline here at the end of July, which are all going to be hot topics in the next few weeks.
Oh, and Vince, actually, before you answer that, I also want to thank we've got actually even more 5-star ratings just for this podcast, and I just really want to thank everybody because this is just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, we do this to talk baseball and stuff, and it's just so great to be able to connect with the possibly the best, I guess, fan base that any sports team could have. I mean, to be able to overcome, at times decades of mediocrity and being able to, just root for the team no matter what. Like, I mean, Milwaukee is such a great baseball city and such great fans.
That is true. That is true. Well, yes, thank you for those ratings. That's outstanding, Scott. Good report on that.
Yep, always great. Thank you, guys. And if you want, throw us a 5-star because it definitely helps us out. Because I think when we started this, we were one of the best Milwaukee Brewers podcasts out there because there just wasn't any. And when we see more podcasts, we don't think like, oh, no, even more competition. No, we think it's great. Like, it's just manifesting even more greatness and even more brewer fans and people looking for more content. That's awesome.
That's exciting. And Scott, you'll probably do another one of your giveaways or have your interns do another giveaway going forward. I know that last year around this time you gave away a Ricky Weeks autographed baseball to I think our 200th follower or something of that nature. So we'll have another giveaway, I'm sure, to start off the second half for our tradition. So continue to stay tuned for that as well.
Yeah, I guess anything's possible. Have to maybe dig up something or try to figure out what we could do. I know that the last person that actually won was probably one of our biggest fans and most active contributors on Twitter with us, and it's always great to see somebody like that win. And it's definitely awesome. That was the Ricky Weeks ball.
That's right. Well, thanks to Vikram. Thanks to Vikram who won that competition, and thanks to Liz for the question today, and to Michelle Prolongo for her question last week that we got to on the air. But in any event, thank you all for listening. We continue to try to bring you good Brewers coverage. We will have a second show here this week where we will do Around the Horn series of trivia questions, so stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, remember to stay classy and go Brewers.
Go Brewers.
All right, Scotty, good episode, man.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Did you hear my barking in the background?
I did. That's great. Say hi.